Call the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans, October 18th, 2023. Board of Directors meeting to order. Do we have, are we live? We are. Okay, thank you very much. Special counsel, please call the roll if you would.
Mayor Cantrell, Councilmember King, Director Barnes, Director Duplessis,
Present.
Director Markowitz, Director Guzman,
Here.
Director Pacho,
Here.
Director Sloss,
Here?
Director Howard,
Here.
Director Scholas.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We now need approval of the minutes from dated September 20th, 2023. May we have a motion to that end?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, please so signify. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Bringing us to Executive Director's Report. Mr. Corbin, please proceed.
Everyone, good to be here this morning. Starting our report this morning, we're going to begin with giving you an update on the power complex. It's shaping up in a very, very dramatic way. Again, I'm very excited to get you out there and show you in person what kind of progress we have made. So substation work remains on schedule. It's almost complete, very exciting. And in terms of our piece, as you know, I repeat myself, but it's a lot of moving parts, and that's progressing very well. The utility rack, which is a picture of that you see on the right, is really becoming real. I mean, you see it, you see what it's gonna do, where it's going to, and where it's coming from. It's really very remarkable how much progress we've made on that. It's very visible. We obviously continue to juggle funding, make sure that we stay the course and we deliver the project for the peak season of 2025. As you know, the capital outlay dollars were approved through the legislative session earlier this season. Tomorrow is the actual bond commission meeting to approve in global all the approved funding, and obviously our $10 million is there. We plan to attend, even though there's really no presentation or speaking role, but we just want to make sure we're there and we're not taking it for granted, that we appreciate everybody's effort to get us that money. As you know, that has been very crucial in getting us the second frequency changer to allow us to optimize the use of the substation in 2025. Very, very crucial. Frequency changers in Turbine 7 continue to be either being manufactured or going through testing and commissioning, where they are being manufactured before they actually go into storage. This is a picture of our Turbine 7 being tested and commissioned. We have some folks who are present being trained and becoming obviously familiar with the machine, because we will be ultimately responsible for maintaining that machine. So again, very exciting, and it's being prepped after it's tested to go to storage. Again, it's a very good place to be, where you have, of all the moving parts, one of the key components being completed and ready to be used, and waiting for other projects to be funded or being executed. So again, it's progressing exactly as designed. So.
It's a complex looking thing, isn't it?
Moving on to the issue of the day, obviously the saltwater intrusion, you're all well familiar with what it is and its impact on our region. We continue to work with our partners at the Corps and GOSEP to remain updated and current with the projections. As of today, we see no impact on our city and the two intakes, with the one exception that we are monitoring very closely, which is their projections are such that we will not really get to the 250 parts per million, which is seems to be like a known or a baseline threshold for action level. But we are continue to keep an eye on that, even though it's not 250. What is it? Is it 100? Because I'll show you in a second what our acceptable range is and what might, how it's going to be elevated and what we may choose to do to minimize the impact of that. This sill that the Corps has built and augmented has done its job and obviously slowed the wedge quite a bit, and it's working. So a global or universal solution that's helped the entire region minimize their action and hopefully no action at the end of the day, at least for this season. So this is, I'm sure you've all seen this in terms of what the projections are and the river markers. And again, we are not under any threat as of today. As you know, the Corps will have a weekly update, and we may hear about that update today, but it will become public, consistent with their previous practices tomorrow, and we'll know what that means. Steady, improved. We hope it's more favorable than what we see. And this is just generally speaking, what if action we take, regardless of the East or West Bank. The difference between the two, how we transport fresh water to the intake to blend or replace the water that may be in question in terms of salinity. So just briefly, we will build a cofferdam, basically a box around the intake to isolate the intake from the river water that's in question. And then we would, in this case, in the West Bank case, we will construct a reservoir barge, kind of semi-permanent place, secured, and then the Corps of Engineers would transport whatever amount of water we need. Either they are equipped to move about 14 million gallons a day, which allows us not even have to blend. Quite honestly, we can just use the water they bring if we choose to do so. And again, it depends on the level of salinity and how much we need to blend or replace. If we have to do anything on East Bank, it would be the similar mechanism, except the transportation of how we transport the water would be via a large size pipe that would run water from about 10 to 12 miles upriver. Again, it's very unlikely for us to do that, but nonetheless, having a plan is key, knowing what we need to do and when. So, and the decision will be done in collaboration with GOSAP, FEMA, and the Corps, because obviously they're the main funder of anything we do.
Excuse me, at such time that there is no more threat, we'll announce that too, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry?
At such time that it rains, whatever happens, and we know that we're not going to have a saltwater threat, we will announce that.
Oh, absolutely. When the threat disappears or is eliminated or postponed significantly, of course. But like I said, for the time being, we're keeping an eye on the chloride levels. We have a dashboard that our customers can view. That picture on the right is tracking a daily testing that's happening. As you can see, we are well within the acceptable range, no action required. So we shared that information with all our partners, specifically LDH, because obviously they are the governing agency relative to water quality, drinking water. So they're being extremely good partners with us, guiding us, helping us with these testing and any other tests that we need to do to stay ahead of the situation. So testing is number one line of defense, so to speak, to know what you need to do, if anything. So. This situation obviously is getting us attention as high as the White House. We hosted a delegation from GOSAP, the Corps, National Security Council, and White House infrastructure staff. We gave them a tour of our plant as it currently stands. We gave them a tour of the intake, and really big takeaway from this, aside from the attention commitment that we're here to help you, is we got the conversation about long-term solutions going, and they seem to be very receptive, and because it's logical that if we have a way to develop a permanent solution for the same or lesser cost than a one-time solution or mitigation, it would be irresponsible not to consider it.
Right.
So I felt very encouraged with how receptive and their commitment for them to go back and see what they can do for us in the region. They've met with our counterparts at Jefferson Parish, and they had the same conversation and same commitment. So silver lining, I suppose, and it lines up obviously with our water quality master plan that we had initiated a couple months ago. It typically takes about 18 to 24 months. We received 3 proposals, and the process of selection had started. So once we're successful with that, and we can analyze or evaluate how imminent the funding is, we can start maybe even expediting that process. So if we have funding in place or committed to us, we can certainly expedite and get us a plan to start executing sooner rather than later. Now that plan obviously has to consider PFAS. As you all know, we have to start capturing contaminants in the future. So we'll have to make sure that that is one of the drivers for the new design. Obviously salinity, what can we do or incorporate in that new technology that allows us to proactively manage the situation with no additional action at all. And this put us in compliance with the lead and copper rule in the future, and generally speaking. So it's all lining up. Obviously, it's going to be a while, but it's all helping us go in the direction we've always wanted to go, which is replacing the purification plant, both at the east and the west bank. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I just my colleagues and I have been doing a lot of research on the past events that have occurred with saltwater intrusion in the river, and a lot of the things we've dug up have found that for a number of years up until like the 1980s, the Sewage and Water Board would often involve themselves in discussions at the board around dredging, and oftentimes would go on record as being against dredging projects. I'm just curious to what extent we haven't really involved ourselves in those conversations in my memory. Is there any plan going forward that perhaps when the Corps is talking about increasing the depth of the river that we involve ourselves in that discussion, because it clearly is a threat to our source water?
I mean, that obviously is a logical conversation to have. We feel like this is a point where we need to focus on the current situation, and I mean, it's going to force itself on everybody. I mean, from the media to other agencies looking at action and obviously the results of their action. So it will be time at one point after we're past this to have that discussion, and I'm sure they're having their internal discussions and considerations. So we'll see what that means, and we may have to take a formal position on it at one point.
I think before we take a formal position, there's still an opportunity through communications to kind of, after we get through sort of the crisis, right, and we know that we're going to be okay, we don't want to let the issue die until the next time, right? And so I think there is an opportunity to kind of talk about the causes, the various causes, so that people understand and get that. And that can be something that precedes taking a formal stance.
I totally understand and agree. And again, it's all about timing. So we're in the room now. We're everybody's focusing on the resolution. I think the court has stepped up, and they're doing everything that within their power or within their allowable authority to contribute to the solution. Demonstrated by the example of we build the coffer dam and they transport the water. That's a costly effort, and it's 100% on them. And our cost is going to be reimbursed, and you will hopefully approve a CA coming up on the agenda, allowing us to receive funding from FEMA through GOSAP and the city for all the expenses that we incur as part of the mitigation. So,
But the idea that the directors have said that this, that once this crisis passes, let's not waste a good crisis. Let's think about what we can do long term. It's just to quote some politician somewhere along the
Got
way.
everyone's attention.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving on to smart metering, we had the opportunity yesterday to provide the operations committee with what I believe a very thorough and thoughtful report that Becca Johnsey gave, and this is very summary of that report. We're moving forward. A lot of key parts in terms of integration of the technology which is crucial. If that piece doesn't work, nothing else we're doing works. So we're focusing quite a bit on that process, testing and what have you. And so far, everything is moving in a good way. The quality assurance and quality control is a process where it puts the onus on both the implementer and the owner. So the installer has the obligation to make sure that they're assuring us the quality, but then we also test that quality. So it's like a dual purpose to make sure that everything that's being done is tested redundantly to make sure that everything's fine. We're focusing on the larger meters in terms of 1.5 and 2 inch meters. It started because of the supply chain, but it's also proving that it's helpful that they take a little bit more time. They're allowing us to work through challenges and which we expected to encounter some issues and solve them as we go, which will prepare us for the big scale launch later this November 1st, actually. So we'll be in better shape to respond to any challenge that we encounter in the field. So again, tracking very well, and we're in a good place. In terms of another initiative for this year is the paving and all the restorations. We're doing extremely well. As you can see with the numbers, by the end of the year, we would have touched about 2,000 locations alone. So that's a tremendous accomplishment, and that comes, obviously by design, because we made it a priority in terms of funding and focusing on improving how we do things, efficiencies, buying some equipment to allow production to increase dramatically. So kudos to the team and the partnership with the city to augment our effort. And again, it's a very, very good place to be. And lastly, or I guess second to last, I wanted to share a very exciting update on the one-stop shop. As you know, we had been running a separate operation from the city. We have had very antiquated process. Everything has to be written on a piece of paper. The documentation there's no database. There's really no way to track. And we have transitioned into becoming part of one-stop shop in partnership with the city. We have embedded personnel there, so now plumbers can just go to the city and then get their plumbing, any permits that required from us, they can do it at the city, and it's all documented. So for any future needs in terms of what took place, how many permits, who permitted what, it's all in one place, and it's very well documented and accurately documented. It's
great.
Very, very good place. Again, in terms of, we've always wanted to do this, and we're finally here. Lastly, just wanted to highlight that we go after money where it is. I know it sounds redundant. I share this with you every meeting, but the number continues to grow with your approvals allowing us to go after grants or low or no interest loans. We've maximized our ability to do so at $182 million that is either received or are committed to. So it's again, that lessens the burden on our ratepayers, even though in some cases, these are loans that have to be paid back, but paid over, a longer period of time, lessens the burden on the system funds. In a minute, you're gonna hear from Gray relative to our desire to gain your support to go to the council and request a rolling forward of our millage. This happens every 4 years. We believe it's a very rare opportunity for us to increase our revenue for drainage, because drainage, unlike the water and wastewater, there isn't really a structured funding mechanism that we can go after. So it's really one of the very few opportunities for us to increase revenue and allow us to be proactive and start improving our drainage system in a meaningful way. Gray will go into details and make a case for you, and
Right.
Obviously we're hoping for your unanimous support. So with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much.
And Director Sloss, we wanted to note for the record that Directors Antrup and Markowitz are here.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. That brings us now to committee reports, the first of which is going to be given by Director Duplessis, the Governance Committee. Please.
Good morning, everyone. The Governance Committee met on Tuesday, October 19th, and we began approximately at 10 a.m. Present was myself, Director Howard, Director Barnes, and Director Guzman. During this meeting, we had a presentation item where we discussed the General Superintendent search. The timeline of that search began October 12th with the revised RFP that was put out. We have one action item, Resolution R-124-2023, to amend Sewage and Water Board's bylaws as it relates to the change of membership of the Plumbing Conference Committee. There was no public comment. There was no further business that came before that committee, and we adjourned at approximately 10:26 a.m.
Thank you very much. May we have a motion to accept the September 19, 2023 Governance Committee report?
So moved. Second.
Been moved properly seconded. All in favor, please so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I often wonder if there ever people will ever oppose the committee report. I'm sorry. The next report would be from Director Scholas, the Audit Committee, please.
The Audit Committee met on Wednesday, September 20th in the Executive Boardroom, and it was called to order at about 9 a.m. I was present, as well as Director Duplessis, Director Barnes, and Director Antrup. We had presentation items and then action items, including resolution to approve our internal audit charter and a resolution to improve our audit committee charter. These puts us in alignment with best practices, and the meeting was adjourned approximately at 9:19 a.m. And that is the report.
Thank you. May we have a motion to accept the September 20, 2023 Audit Committee report?
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Did we vote to accept the charter?
So, is it in the action items?
That will be in our November meeting. board
Okay.
meeting.
Because it has a holdover.
It's going to happen in 2023.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Oh, thank you very much, Director Scholas. I'm going to give the Finance and Administration Committee report as the Finance Administration Committee met October 11th in the Executive Boardroom at approximately 3 o'clock. Present were myself, Directors Howard, Cascio, Guzman. Absent was Director Markowitz. Executive Director Corbin gave an update on saltwater intrusion. I think we've got a more updated one than that today. We had cash flow overview. Our CFO, Mr. Gray Lewis, presented financial results, liquidity position. We're in good shape. Water and sewer cash levels are 189, 272 days on hand, respectively, which meet the minimums and as well as targets. Our debt service collections within budget forecasts. Our collections in September actually were $22.3 million, which is slightly above the 21.6 average that we've had for the past 6 months. Receivables saw a decrease of 5% from 53.9 million. That's down 2.7 from the prior month end. Billed revenues were above budget by about $5 million, and expenses were below budget. We, sorry to be so long with this, we got an update on customer service statistics, which we always do. Open bill disputes decreased to 4,787, down from 5,286. And there was more along that line. We had a special presentation on the quadrennial millage reappraisal, which we'll hear more about here. But essentially, we're talking about rolling forward 2.5 mills. If we do roll back to where we were, we would be going from 16.23 down to 13.73, and if we go back to 16.23 again, that's 2.5 mills. 2.5 mills is 2.5 divided by 1,000 times the assessed value of your house, which is not the market value, it's 10% of that. We have an odd deal, and I'm sure Gray will tell us more about it. But the importance of that is that would provide about $12.8 million more next year. Then, and our report here says 15, it's actually 12.8, I believe. But that's very important for PAYGO. Our PAYGO capital items, I don't want to steal your thunder, Gray, but our PAYGO capital items, we have about $3 million after we pay seal of debt, so this provides another $12.8 million. We've got to have that. Anyway, so we'll hear more about that. We had the we had 5 action items, 2 contract awards, renewals, 1 amendment, and 2 final acceptances, which are all in your package. There was no public comment. We received the usual items that you have in your package as well today. I'm sorry to go on like that, but I feel very strong about rolling forward. So, do I make a motion to accept my own report? Would somebody make a motion to accept the Finance Administration Committee report?
So moved.
A second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That carries. Thank you very much. Bringing us now to our CFO, Gray Lewis, and Interim General Superintendent Ron Spooner will present on, they will both present on this. Excuse me.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to present on our forecasted drainage millage revenue for fiscal -- As we've been discussing, this is the year of a reappraisal, so the tax assessor goes through the tax rolls as required, and there, if we can go to the next slide, there is a property value increase this year. So under the constitutional law, there's two steps. We have 2 resolutions that we bring forward. The first one is rolling back, serving to reduce the millage rate such that the taxing agency is receiving a level amount of revenue as to the year prior to the reappraisal. And then the next step is at the option of the agency and their board of directors voting, you roll forward to your previous rate. The maximum would be the previous rate that was in effect. So that's what we're talking about today, and we'll walk through the numbers, and then Ron's going to speak to some of the specific projects that this funding will allow us to no longer defer. So on this slide, we show what our 3 millages are, the current rates, and the expiration dates. And as we've talked about in many different venues and rate consultants, the funding for the drainage system, which is the largest system, the balance sheet, the capital, property and equipment, talking about $1.7 billion throughout the city of assets. So this is what we need to be more proactive and invest in replacing this aged infrastructure. So rolling forward allows us to fund these previously deferred capital projects, which is occurring year after year, and mitigate some of the risks that exist in the drainage system. And the reality is, every rain load, every heavy rainstorm, these are the assets that are put under pressure, and we have to rely on. We have to be more proactive in investing in those. On this slide, we're just highlighting some of the different entities and rate consultants that have been involved in each of these exercises, where we look at comprehensive financial planning, how much to spend on capital to invest each year, and we're short every year, so we're deferring. And in the case of our 6 mill, that will be expiring in 2028. So this next 4-year reappraisal, it'll come around rather quickly. the drainage system will not be able to meet its financial obligations. So this particular decision to roll forward is not connected to, any one of these particularly, and, for example, the stormwater fee is still on the table, so it's not solving any one of these particularly, but it is allowing us to capture the revenue that is already dedicated to this system and invest appropriately. When we look at the numbers, this table is showing you how the math actually works. So on the left-hand side is what we historically have received for drainage, fiscal 23, 68.2 million. And then the rollback calculation reduces the millage by the 2.5 President mentioned. So that would come to 13.73 there in the middle. And the revenue under that rate, you see, is a little bit higher than the 68 million, and that's because of new construction for fiscal 24, but it's essentially flat, and that's the intent of the Constitution. But then you take the roll forward step, you increase it up to 2.5 back to 16.23, apply that to the higher tax base that's been assessed, and that's where we're getting the 83.5 million. So another 13 million plus the 2.5, so that's the 15.3 million of additional revenue that we're able to budget for in fiscal 24. That drops immediately to our PAYGO capital. We want to invest that in capital projects. And at the individual taxpayer level, you're talking about a pretty nominal increase on the 2.5 mil, $25 per 10,000 of assessment. This slide is showing what we currently do year after year, about 10 to 13 million. Very little PAYGO capital is available to drainage. The first thing we have to address is our SELA commitments. We have a payback, the Uptown completed basins. We pay program management to run SELA as the largest program, and then we pay for our cost sharing in Algiers Basin, the active SELA projects. We have to pay for relocation. So all of that's a big commitment, about 10 million. And that leaves really just about 3 million where you're looking at the DPS overhaul improvements and underground system improvements. 2 to 3 million is really not getting much at all of new proactive investment in the infrastructure. The rest of the things we put on the list, we would like to do them, we just don't have the funding to do it, so they get deferred. And on this slide, we'll pass it over to Ron to share some of the projects specifically that we've identified for this funding.
Yes, thanks, CFO. As he indicated from the previous slide, what's important on the previous slide is that of that $10 million, a lion's share of that we have to pay what I've said for SELA. That's our 30-year mortgage. Very good projects post-Katrina for mitigating flooding, storage, but it does take away the capital that we need to keep our other facilities ongoing with our drainage pump station. So as you can see on this slide here, in 2024, of rolling forward would allow us to get back into rehabilitating and doing PM work on our major drainage pump stations, as you can see. Again, from our drainage box repairs, what we're doing, some of our oldest box repairs, and I like to say is that our facility, especially in the Old City drainage area, is 80 plus years old. These are, they're still running, they're still functional, but we have to put that capital in there to keep them going. So again, from the left, it goes from our drainage box canals, looking at backup generators that we have to improve or add at those drainage pump stations. Again, our discharge bells, we have to do work on those. Gears, generators, as you can see, it's just the ongoing rehab and capital improvement we must put into these facilities to keep us operational. And again, the roll forward will allow us to do that, not just on a one-year basis, but on an annual basis, so we can actually keep up with our facilities that we should do. So that's just an overview of that slide itself from drainage. And as you can see at the bottom, another important component of drainage is that power. That power system itself associated with our 25 hertz system, because we're the only utility that can produce 25 hertz. So it's all very important, and that's where it's critical for the roll forward in order for us to keep our facilities in shape. Next slide. And this slide here, as you can see, is just a depiction of photos of our aging infrastructure. Again, DPS 7 discharge bells, we need some major work we have to do on that. We push that to the right because of the intense capital funding that's needed for that. And again, from 1916 to 1931, this is where this was put in place. DPS 15, again, that's out in the Intracoastal Waterway, but again, it's aging infrastructure, and we need this funding to start rehabbing and replacing that.
And to be clear, I see water shooting out of the pipe in the DPS 15, which I presume was not intentional.
No, that again, that's just showing.
Well, illustrative of what's going on, but to be clear, all this is to keep us from flooding. I mean, it's complicated, but
That's
this is
correct.
all about keeping us from flooding. I want to speak.
And a good point, and we just wanted to show that because our facility maintenance crew do a very good job. We patch that. So we actually we'll plate over that to keep us operational. And that's what we do.
The Band-Aid.
But it is a Band-Aid, but the roll forward allow us to replace this to keep us up to par, sort of like renovating your house after 70, 80 years. We have to put some money in it to keep us operational. Okay, great.
So again, that's the request. The roll forward, we believe, addresses these deferred capital needs and will help us start chipping away at that and appropriately investing in the aging infrastructure. So happy to answer any other questions.
So the underpass, does this planned project include the one in District D that was such a problem this past spring, or has that already been dealt with?
Which underpass you're referring to?
It was one over,
I-10 maybe?
no, there was one over there near Suno.
No, yes, that is, we're doing some, again, rehab work on that. That's Press Street underpass?
Yes.
That's some structural work, earthwork we have to do adjacent to the railroad. So again, the funding would address all of the issues with all of our drainage facilities and power facilities. And this would allow us to keep on pace of keeping our systems up to par.
So that hasn't been definitively fixed yet, and this is the money that would fix it?
It will fix that, and that is actually currently in design by one of our design consultants.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think this is really exciting, and obviously it's, to have a little bit of money to spend in capital for drainage is incredible. But I am pretty disappointed that there's no money set aside for any further investments in green infrastructure. And I think that it's critical that we continue our commitment to our community in doing that. And it doesn't have to be a large commitment, even $50,000 or $100,000 a year out of that $16 million would make a big difference and allow us to continue to fund a project or two a year.
I would say if again, what you're looking at are higher priority projects to really keep us operational. It's not to say green infrastructure is off the table, but again, what we're showing here are our need to our high priority projects, and then we'll come down that list. And if green infrastructure is on it, we will incorporate those smaller projects in there. But we just wanted to show our higher priority projects that we need to move forward with. Yes.
Can you go back to the screen that showed the values? That one, okay.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I think we have continually committed to the community that this is a high priority for us. And so I think we need to put our money where our mouth is. And I don't think that $50,000 or $100,000 out of this total is going to make us no longer operationally able to do our jobs.
Yep.
I agree with Tyler, and I think it is a small amount to also kind of get the buy-in from the public that we badly need, because I think it shows us being progressive, so we're fixing the problems, and obviously we have to do all this stuff, like no question at all. But if we don't keep the momentum going with green infrastructure, we're just going to lose some people who are going to stop trusting us and being able to.
Just to highlight, we do have the
gonna
green
say that.
infrastructure
Yeah,
piece
third page.
in our
Thanks.
PAYGO.
Right.
Right, but it's maintaining
not-
projects we've already built.
That's
We need to
correct.
continue building projects.
Well, and I think that could be part of a different discussions in the finance committee. I think the amount and the sources of money for those type of projects could be found elsewhere. I think it's important to note that if we're talking about capital improvements, the sources of money are limited and they all have a cost. And what we're proposing here is the lowest cost for items that are critical for operation. I'm not saying that I'm agreeing with you, green infrastructure is critical, but there are other sources of money that we can find as well.
One thing's for sure, we're more likely to be able to pay for the green infrastructure if we roll forward than if we don't, because it's an.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm not saying I'm not supporting it as a result of this, but I'm saying I think it's a huge oversight to not have it included on the slide. I think it's a
Well, they've,
a screaming gap.
Management's is presented this, I mean, look, I'd like to stick to rolling forward right now. and
Sure.
Take this up,
Yeah, I would just like to request that this
yeah, why don't we just
be
request
taken
we take it
seriously.
up? And,
Yeah.
instead of, okay, thank you very much. Is there any more discussion on this presentation? Yes, Janet.
Is this on the roll forward or on the presentation?
Well, we can talk, it's the roll forward is what the presentation's about right now.
Well, when I'm looking at this, the salient point, I think, is that we don't exist in this city without drainage. That's the bottom line. It's like the most fundamental infrastructure we have. Right now, we have $13.5 million if available. 10 million is committed. That gives 3.5 million for capital for the most fundamental infrastructure in the city. When you look at that, as a board member, I can't do anything but vote for a roll forward because I would not be doing my duty to the public if I ignored let $15 million go out the window like this.
And it's a de minimis amount on the tax roll, 2.5 mils. I
Yeah,
couldn't agree
2.5
more.
mils is not a big part of it. But leaving that aside, when you look at it, you say 13.5 million minus 10 million is 3 million, 3.5. We can't continue as a city on that basis. So I'm 100% behind it and not being cavalier about people's money, but you've got to invest in public infrastructure.
On a $200,000 house, it's $31 a year. And anybody can do the arithmetic who feels like doing that. I couldn't agree more with Director Howe, and I feel like it would be, it's our duty to look for this. We weren't able to get a rate even study initiated, and we don't have a place to go. Director Markowitz, you look.
But because based on what I see in the paper, I can expect, or I think we can expect this to be completely politicized. I think that, I don't know what the plan is in terms of what parts of this presentation might be used for presentations to city council and other stakeholders, but I think it can be improved by a shift in the tone of focus on not these things as a benefit, but more directly as talking about the severe risk.
Yeah.
This needs to be improved
The risk.
to talk about the risk, not the benefit. It's just looking at it from two sides of the same coin, but it's too soft. I don't think it's going to be compelling enough in the face of what I expect will be a completely politicized
We
debate.
couldn't agree more, and as a
So
matter of
this-
fact, we did discuss to walk through the ramifications of lack of action,
Yeah.
one project at a time. And just if you go back to the bell at DPS 7, I mean, just the one on the left, that poses such a threat where it would render the entire station inoperable, because if we can't prime the pumps because of that continuous deterioration, we cannot use DPS 7.
But
Period.
I'll gladly
So-
volunteer, whoever's job it is to work on the deck.
Yeah.
I will volunteer time to come back and give you guys some of my personal inputs on how this can be edited to, I think, be more effective in conveying the risk.
Right.
If we took a look at worst case and every one of those things listed on there failed at one time, I mean, that'd be pretty dire.
Yeah.
But I don't think,
But it's possible.
as dire as people in the room who knows what this means, the general public has no idea.
Right.
But they just see maybe it may need a coat of paint. But we understand in this room, but communicating to the public is something very different.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that being a senior member, if you will, on this board, so many of the issues that plague us today is because of deferred maintenance and things not being done. I am extremely pleased at the efforts today to put together a funding mechanism to take care of the deferred mechanism and understanding the severity of what needs to be done to keep us operational and dry is absolutely critical. So I am 100% in support of what we need to do today in terms of rolling forward with this millage.
You know,
It's
what-
decades,
may I share
decades
one-
of
Yeah.
deferred maintenance that dumped in this board's lap, yes.
Just one perspective, we talked about the SELA commitment, that's a significant amount, $10 million a year, that goes around toward improvements, new facilities or much improved facilities. and preventing us from maintaining the old one. I think there's irony, and it may pose the question for us, at least at minimum consideration for, suspending our participation in CELA, and if we can't commit to paying in the future, given the limited funding, we stop leveraging millions of dollars that come from the Corps to improve our drainage. I mean, that's a terrible, terrible place to be.
Well, I think that sounds like an analysis the board needs to look at in the future about what exactly would happen in that scenario. I think we need to look at all scenarios. We haven't had luck. Luck's not the right word. We haven't had success at city council in terms of rate and so forth. Hopefully we'll have a drainage fee because everybody thinks that would be more fair, but we have to figure out exactly the kind of thing, Robert.
Yeah,
Maybe
just
Well,
to,
let's do one.
So maybe another,
Sorry.
just to Carol's point about how we're communicating this, I think, such a big chunk is going to pay off debt, but to really clarify what we got from that and how much money was leveraged, I think is really important because we sort of like put that aside really quickly and then we're like, and then we have $3 million left. But what was able to happen as a result of that funding also can be communicated.
Oh,
So that-
absolutely,
So that it's really clear.
The benefit is being enjoyed as we speak of all the improvements that took
And
place.
I think that we're
Yeah.
not, that's where we can get, again, we've got to communicate so people really fully understand what the
Right.
money goes to and that we've been accountable for it.
Agreed. Director Guzman.
yeah, just to drill in the importance of this, would be equivalent as if a doctor tells you you need a bypass, and then you want, hold that aside because you don't want to pay for it. So it's a matter of time. So we really need this critical infrastructure to continue the system.
I hope that's not insightful on me.
I mean, this is how critical it is.
So what's the
The
timeline?
the other thing, when we talked, we talked about the hundreds of millions, the money that we've availed ourselves of, this agency has done, since I've been on the board, yeoman's work in terms of finding money everywhere. And if there's $3 million someplace that we can get, we get it. And so I think we're exploring all opportunities all the time and unearthing whatever sources of funds there may be.
But to answer the question about timeline, what today is a key required step to get majority approval or support of our formal request to the council. We've made it clear to the council that that's our intention, but obviously conditional on your support. So we will forward that formal request, and then they will have to, hopefully arrange for or schedule an opportunity for us to come and make a case, and then they would ultimately vote yes or no about regarding
And
that.
what opportunity, if any, is there for like one-on-one education with each of the council's offices, et cetera, et cetera?
Once today's step is complete, that allows us to then, on your behalf, start
Doing
that with your help, obviously, and then even with your presence at,
As we talked about earlier, I think I'm willing to make a phone call. I'm willing to show up for things. I know Thursdays are tough for me for patients, but like outside of that, I'm happy to go and sit down with my elected officials and others I have relationships with and walk through this. I think all of us that have any relationships will do that because I don't want this just to be a presentation item. And I really, really, my colleague's point sits with me that we don't just have to be right; we have to be persuasive. And for the believers, we understand when we see this. For someone that doesn't come to this already understanding what this means, like where's DPS 7 even located? Like I'm not saying that to answer that today, but there are plenty of people who are like, where is that? Is that my house? And to really drive home, we've been responsible with the money. We found money wherever we could find it. We maintained this stuff. Things that we've done before have paid dividends, so this isn't wasteful, and this is something critical for us existing going forward. And it just, I just cannot say it enough. The politics of this have to be negotiated and navigated properly.
Totally
That's
agree.
true. I hope all of us who are available are going to be at the meeting when the council votes on this, because I hope that will be helpful.
Carol, how do you see this being politicized?
Well, I mean, I think
Anytime
we've
there's more
already
money.
read in the paper, they've already talked about the anticipation or the expectation of this coming to council, and that they've indicated, I think certain council members have already hinted that they would vote against this.
They said flat out.
Yeah, so I mean,
Wait a hint, yeah.
I feel like we need to go out with our best foot forward with talking about what's at stake here, and I'm afraid this presentation did not meet what my expectations would be. If based on putting myself in the shoes of certain council people, if they've already indicated they'd be against it, like, we need to do better than this.
Yeah. Well,
F&A will work on that, and you're part of that, so we look forward to your input on that, because I agree with you. It's a scary thing and should be projected as such.
Yeah.
And do we have other champions that, you know, not elected officials, but others in the community who can
we
make
we would lean on
statements, who
people,
can-
I mean, as much as we can.
This is scheduled for sometime in December,
Yeah,
so that's
we
an
have time.
evasive answer, but I think we have some time to put that coalition together.
Because that's presentations to other groups.
Yeah. Right. I'd like to have every citizen in town calling the council saying, roll it forward.
That's the point, is
I
kind of
know.
like, how do we persuade, so we can't rely just on council alone. We've got to
Right.
rely on the people that vote for them, so.
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's 2.5 mils, so $25 per 10,000 of assessed value, which is $100,000 of market value.
I mean, I just think we have to be careful about, it sounds like we think that's not a lot of money, and I think we have to recognize that some people it is, it's a fact, but it gets something, like there's value to it that is very concrete.
It's worth it, is what I would say. I mean, I certainly think it
I
is,
think so.
yeah. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, and I don't mean to stop it, but we can proceed with action, with the 5 action items on the agenda. The first being, which is something we have to do, item 6, which is resolution 126, 2023, rollback of the sewage and water board millages, and Greg's gonna take that for us, please.
Yes, thank you. Resolution 126 is our constitutionally required rollback of the existing drainage millages due to the increase in property values in the coming fiscal year. The impact of the resolution is to decrease the actual tax rate such that the increase in the appraisal value to which the tax is levied versus the same revenue as a year prior to reappraisal. Total rate is rolled back to 13.73 mils, whereas fiscal '23 was collected at a rate of 16.23 mils. We appreciate the board's vote on this required resolution under the Louisiana Constitution.
May I have a motion to approve resolution R 126-2023, rollback of the sewage and water board millages?
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye.
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 I think this.
Is it roll call? No, huh?
No, we can do it all, we can actually do, in global vote, we don't have to do a roll call for this one.
Okay.
But if you'd like to, we can.
Well, I think, no,
No, no,
we need to do that. So let's say again, all in favor, so signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think we know. You can write down everybody said yes. The motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to resolution R 127, 2023, roll forward of the sewage and water board millages. Greg, again, please.
Yes, thank you. This resolution is recommending rolling forward our millages to the maximum allowed, which is a tax rate prior to reappraisal and rollback. Millages recommended to the Board of Directors of City Council with total 16.23 mils, consistent with earlier increases in property values, allow the agency to focus on the investment of critical infrastructure needs of the drainage system. Specific projects and investments in drainage pumping equipment and stations have been identified to ensure the additional tax revenue is incorporated into efforts to improve citizens' services of drainage in our city. We appreciate the board's vote to roll forward our 3 millages to the maximum, providing critical infrastructure funding to our drainage system.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve resolution R 127, 2023, roll forward of sewage and water board millages?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved, properly seconded. Is there any discussion, any further discussion on this? I think I see where the vote's gonna go, but I gotta say it is so important. We gotta pass it. Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment. All in favor, please so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Yippee, the motion carries. Thanks, everybody, very much. We now have resolution R-128-2023, the ninth supplemental sewage service revenue bond resolution authorizing the issuance of sewage service revenue bond series 2023.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. This is our final approval on the nice supplement to the sewer revenue bonds, which is the WIFIA financing and relates to the issuance of 31.52 million bond financing, which was committed to SWIBNO by the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. This is at our most favorable cost of capital of 0.95%. It's similar to our earlier DEQ loans. It's an integral part of finishing the sewer consent decree by October 2025. The specific Carrollton Basin consent decree contracts that will be financed through this loan have been arranged by the program manager in the GSO's office and provided to LTEQ as part of the application process. This debt service over the 20-year life will occur from the sewer rates and our capacity analysis for this debt, along with the WIFIA loan, permit us to continue to meet our required debt service covenants for the sewer system. This is, again, this is our final DEQ loan for the consent decree, and it did represent a larger loan commitment than the earlier SRF loans of 11 million and 10 million. So the next steps on this is to proceed with the closing by the December 31st, which was the extended date by the DEQ, and we will have the final authorizations by the Board of Liquidation and the City Council subsequent to the Board of Directors vote today. So thank you for your, this is a roll call vote to approve the ninth supplement to our sewer bonds.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve Resolution R-128-2023, ninth supplemental sewage service revenue bond resolution authorizing the issuance of sewage service revenue bond series 2023?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say I think this is also critically important. I mean, we're talking about finalizing out a nearly 25-year-old commitment we've made to the EPA. Like, this is huge.
I'm sure everybody caught it, but it's 0.95% cost of
great.
capital, which is
Great.
pretty good rate. Okay, is there any other discussion? Any public comment?
Public comment?
No. Special counsel, please conduct a roll call vote.
Mayor Cantrell, Councilmember King, Director Barnes,
Yay.
Director Duplessis,
Aye.
Director Markowitz,
Yes.
Director Guzman,
Yes.
Director Pesha,
Yes.
Director Sloss,
Yes.
Director Howard,
Yes.
Director Scholas,
Yes. Director
Antrup.
Yes.
The motion carries. It's great. Item 6D, Resolution R-130-2023, authorization for contract between the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, Emergency Preparedness, and the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans for saltwater intrusion response. Mrs. Ron Spooner, please.
I'll take that,
Yep,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chair. And basically, this sets in motion or allows us to enter into an agreement with GOSAP to establish financial commitment and reimbursement for any action we may have to take to mitigate the saltwater intrusion. While we don't suspect we'll take any action, this would, formalize that commitment if and when we may have to take action, and I guess more importantly, commits their funding mechanism for us as the utility. It's also important to note, Walnut spelled out our portion, our local share that is typically dictated by any FEMA agreement is coming from the city of New Orleans, the 12.5% local share. So at the end of the day, if we take any action, the utility will not bear any cost other than the coordination and the execution of the projects. So.
That sounds great. May I have a motion to approve Resolution R-130-2023, authorization for contract between the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness and the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans for saltwater intrusion response?
So moved.
Second.
Moved properly seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? Does this expire? It must expire at some point.
It must.
Some point in time,
Sure.
just curiosity. Any discussion? Or any public comment?
No public comment.
All in favor, please so signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Bringing us to 6E, Resolution R-131, 2023, second extension of contract for furnishing janitorial and related services to multiple sewage and water board locations.
And Mr. Spooner will handle that one.
Say again?
Mr. Spooner will handle this one.
Good.
Yes, and this is a straightforward, it's a second extension of our contract for janitorial services with all of sewage and water board facilities that we maintain. Again, this extension would take us through 2024. We're in the process now of working a new contract to be in place prior to the end of this extension, April 2024. So again, it brings us continuity of operations with our janitorial contract with all our facilities, and we were asking for approval of this extension.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve Resolution R-131, 2023, second extension of contract for furnishing janitorial and related services to multiple sewage and water board locations. I don't know what REQ SA 19-0001 is, but is there a motion? Well, sorry.
Question?
Well,
Motion first?
let's get the motion and discussion. How about that? Been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Now, any discussion? Janet?
Janet?
Well, you just, if it's a renewal or extended, why is it not a corresponding resolution? I'm just curious.
It was not brought before the Finance and Administration
Okay.
Committee meeting, and so that's why it has to go directly to the board.
Okay.
It meets the deadline, and so we needed to bring it directly to the board for your vote.
Okay.
I have one more question. I know it's not directly related to janitorial, but I know it's been a concern of the staff in this building for a long time. What are we doing about the bathrooms in here?
I would answer that after the vote. Be glad to answer
Okay.
that after the vote.
Great.
Okay, so is there any other discussion? Is there public comment? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Director Antrim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was asking about what's going on with the bathrooms in this building.
Yeah.
What, the building?
Yeah,
The bathrooms.
Very important question, and we have our.
Let's finish this, let's finish this.
Okay.
We'll put this at the end if we don't mind, just because we have corresponding resolutions, 7 of them in Globo, which the Finance Committee approved, I believe it was the 11th that we met. Maybe we have a motion to approve the 7 corresponding resolutions on the agenda, all previously approved by the Finance and Administration Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Moved properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there any public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment. All in favor, so signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We do have information on it that you all could take a look at. Is there any public comment?
We have no other public
None,
comment.
okay, so I think there is another matter before we adjourn.
We can put that on the finance.
Other stuff?
Yeah, we could put, that's on the Finance and Administration Committee or Operations Committee regarding the bathrooms, if you like.
Yeah, one of them's greatly improved.
I mean, Ron seems pretty eager to just give us a quick response. I don't know why this has to be a big deal.
We need to follow the agenda.
Yeah, because
So-
it's out of order. That's why it's a big deal.
So we need to follow the agenda. Can we can discuss it right after.
Let's do that if we adjourn. Actually, I think we'd have to vote to change the agenda if we want to bring something
I mean,
else up.
I have sat here so many times heard people ask questions that are completely unrelated to what's happening. Like it's fine.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved properly, seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. They have improved, Tyler. I know they improved the one up here big time. They fixed it.
It's a